If you enjoy deep dives into the shadow wars of the 20th century and the unspoken history of espionage, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. It helps us continue to declassify these stories for you. Now let's go back to 1981. Warsaw, Poland. November 1981. The city was holding its breath. The Polish labor union, Solidarity, was pushing against the Soviet yoke, and the Kremlin was watching with icy patience. The streets of Warsaw were gray, dusted with the first hard frost of a winter that everyone knew would be brutal. There were shortages of everything: coal, meat, sugar, hope. People stood in lines that wrapped around city blocks, huddled in drab coats, waiting for rationed goods that often ran out before they reached the counter. The atmosphere was thick with the smog of low-grade coal and the palpable tension of a society on the brink of martial law. But in the center of this gray ocean, there was an island of technicolor luxury. The Hotel Victoria Intercontinental. Opened in 1976, the Victoria was a jarring anomaly in the communist landscape. It was a massive white concrete rectangle that gleamed against the soot-stained architecture of the surrounding district. Inside, it was a different planet. It had air conditioning that worked, elevators that didn't smell of grease, and a lobby bar that served Johnny Walker Black Label and Marlboro cigarettes, items that were essentially currency on the black market outside. The Victoria was where Western journalists, diplomats, businessmen, and spies came to stay. It was the only place in Warsaw where you could get a steak at 2 a.m. and a secure phone line, or at least a phone line you pretended was secure. For the Central Intelligence Agency's Warsaw station, the Hotel Victoria was known simply as the Aquarium. It was transparent, yet full of sharks. The Polish secret police, the SB, had the place wired from the basement to the roof. Every room was assumed to have a microphone in the lamp or the telephone receiver. The concierge was an informant. The bartenders were on the payroll of the Ministry of Interior. The maids reported who was sleeping with whom. It was a surveillance trap, but it was also the only game in town for high-level meetings. On the afternoon of November 14, 1981, a man named Robert Sterling sat in the lobby of the Victoria, nursing a coffee that cost more than a Polish factory worker earned in a week. Sterling was officially a second secretary for trade at the U.S. Embassy. In reality, he was a senior case officer for the CIA, a veteran of the Berlin and Vienna stations who had been transferred to Warsaw as the political situation deteriorated. He was 45, with the kind of forgettable face that is an asset in his line of work, and a tailored suit that fit the boring bureaucrat cover perfectly. Sterling wasn't there for the coffee. He was there because a walk-in, an unsolicited volunteer, had approached the embassy gates that morning with a message that had set off alarms all the way to Langley. The message was brief, terrified, and specific. It claimed that the KGB had dispatched a specialist to Warsaw. Not an analyst, not a handler, but a cleaner. A man whose job was to resolve problems that couldn't be solved by diplomacy or bribery. The intelligence didn't give a name, only a code. The Architect. The Architect was a ghost story in the intelligence community. He was credited with the natural causes heart failure of a defecting diplomat in Geneva in 1978, and the sudden, unexplained disappearance of a dissident writer in Sofia. He didn't use guns. He didn't make scenes. He engineered accidents. He specialized in chemical agents that mimicked medical emergencies. He was clean, precise, and he was rumored to be in the Hotel Victoria. Sterling scanned the lobby. It was a kaleidoscope of the Cold War's strangest cast of characters. There were Swedish businessmen selling ball bearings, Arab diplomats negotiating arms deals, French journalists hunting for a scoop on Solidarity, and the ever-present working girls of the hotel, who were often as skilled at intelligence gathering as they were at companionship. Somewhere in this mix of perfumed luxury and cigarette smoke, there was a man who shouldn't be there. The stakes were incredibly specific. Staying in room 304 was a man named Dr. Janusz Glowacki. Glowacki was a senior engineer in the Polish military communications sector. He had signaled his intent to defect to the United States 48 hours earlier. He had the schematics for the new encrypted radio systems the Soviet Union was forcing the Warsaw Pact armies to adopt, intelligence of immense value to NATO. The CIA plan was to extract him in 2 days, during a trade delegation reception. If the architect was in the building, he wasn't there for the buffet. He was there to ensure Dr. Glowacki never checked out. Sterling checked his watch. The game had started, and he was playing defense on a board where the opponent was invisible. To understand the threat, the team at the Warsaw station had to first understand the man they were hunting. But the architect was a cipher. The files at Langley were thin, frustratingly so. There were no verified photographs, no fingerprints, just a collection of after-action reports where targets had ceased to function and a man of average height and average build had been seen in the vicinity. Back at the U.S. Embassy, inside the bubble, the acoustically shielded transparent room suspended inside the secure conference room to prevent bugging, Sterling met with his station chief, a gruff chain-smoking man named Harrison. "We have a problem, Bob," Harrison said, sliding a thin folder across the table. "The traffic analysis confirms it. The KGB residency in Warsaw has gone quiet. Radio silence. That usually means a special operation is active, one that is compartmented even from the local resident. They don't want the local Polish SB bungling it." "So the walk-in was real," Sterling said, opening the folder. It contained grainy surveillance photos of 3 different men, taken in 3 different European capitals over the last 5 years. "Is this him?" "Maybe. Maybe all of them. Maybe none," Harrison replied. "The source says the architect arrived yesterday. He's booked under a false passport, obviously. Western European or American cover. He speaks fluent English, French, and German. He blends in. He's not going to be lurking in the shadows wearing a trench coat. He's going to be sitting next to you at the bar complaining about the exchange rate." The target, Dr. Glowacki, was terrified. He was currently holed up in his room at the Victoria, clutching a briefcase full of microfilm, ostensibly preparing for a conference. He had refused to leave the hotel, believing the international presence in the lobby offered him protection. He was wrong. In the world of the architect, a locked door was just a minor variable in the equation. Sterling looked at the roster of guests currently checked into the Hotel Victoria. It was a list of over 300 names. "We can't pull Glowacki out yet," Sterling said. "If we grab him now, the SB watches us do it. They'll arrest him for treason before we get 10 feet out the door. We have to wait for the reception cover on Friday. That gives us 48 hours. 48 hours with a wolf in the sheep pen," Harrison muttered. "You need to find him, Bob. You need to identify the architect before he gets to Glowacki. If Glowacki dies of a heart attack tonight, we lose the encryption codes, and we lose a good man." The profile of the architect suggested a high degree of narcissism. Psychological assessments by CIA analysts theorized that he viewed his work as an art form, hence the nickname. He didn't just eliminate targets. He staged the scene so perfectly that local coroners would sign off on natural causes without a second thought. He was meticulous. He would need to perform reconnaissance. He would need to study Glowacki's routine. He would need to get close enough to administer whatever toxin or agent he was using, likely by touch or ingestion. "He's in the hotel," Sterling said, staring at the guest list. "He has to be. He needs proximity. He's not commuting from the Soviet embassy. That would establish a link. Then he's one of these 300 people." Harrison tapped the list. "Filter them. You have 12 hours before the sun comes up. I want a short list." Sterling took the list. The investigation was running on 2 tracks. Track 1. Keep Dr. Glowacki alive by placing counter-surveillance agents in the hotel hallways, posing as guests or maintenance staff. Track 2. Find the needle in the haystack. The challenge was the environment. The Hotel Victoria was a revolving door of espionage. At any given moment, there were probably agents from West German intelligence, BND, French intelligence, DGSE, the British SIS, and the Polish SB all watching each other. Adding a KGB super assassin to the mix turned the hotel into a hall of mirrors. Sterling returned to his office to begin the tedious, unglamorous work of intelligence. Paperwork analysis. He had to check the background of every single male guest traveling alone who had checked in within the last 48 hours. He had to look for anomalies, a passport issued too recently, a travel history that didn't make sense, a credit card limit that didn't match the profession. He was looking for a ghost, but even ghosts have to fill out registration forms. The following morning, the atmosphere inside the Hotel Victoria was deceptively calm. Housekeeping carts rattled down the plush corridors. The smell of coffee and toast wafted from the Canaletto restaurant, and businessmen hurried to the elevators with briefcases. Sterling was back in the lobby, but this time he wasn't alone. The station had mobilized its surveillance ghosts. These were local assets, Polish citizens who worked for the CIA, taking immense risks for ideological reasons or money. One was a bellhop named Marek. Another was a waitress in the opera cafe named Ewa. They were the eyes and ears that Sterling couldn't be. Sterling met Ewa in a frantic, brief brush pass near the cloakroom. He handed her her coat. She slipped a folded napkin into his pocket. On it were 3 table numbers. The man at table 4. The note read, "Swiss businessman. Too quiet. Watches the elevators." Sterling moved to a vantage point near the newsstand, picking up a copy of the International Herald Tribune. He peered over the rim of the paper. Table 4 was occupied by a man in his late 30s, wearing a pristine gray suit. He was eating a croissant with a knife and fork methodically. He had a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. The man's registration card said he was Jean-Luc Benoit, a banking consultant from Zurich. Sterling watched him. The man didn't look like a killer. He looked like a man who cared deeply about interest rates, but that was the point. Benoit had checked in 2 days ago. His room was on the 4th floor, 1 floor directly above Dr. Glowacki. Sterling needed to know if Benoit was who he said he was. He signaled to his team outside. A signal was sent to a contact in Zurich to run the name. Meanwhile, the pressure on Dr. Glowacki was mounting. The scientist had called the emergency number the CIA had given him, a direct line to a safe house that routed through a switchboard in Vienna to avoid tracing. "I hear them," Glowacki had whispered, his voice trembling. "Someone tried my door handle last night, just a rattle, testing the lock." "Stay inside, doctor," Sterling had commanded over the secure line. "Do not open the door for room service. Do not open the door for housekeeping. Eat the rations we gave you." "I can't live like a rat," Glowacki had hissed. "The reception is tomorrow. I will go to the reception, and then we go." "We'll get you out," Sterling promised, though he felt the hollowness of the assurance. If the architect was already testing door handles, the timeline was collapsing. Sterling's focus returned to the lobby. He needed to provoke a reaction. Intelligence gathering is often passive, but sometimes, to catch a predator, you have to poke the bushes. He decided to use a trigger. He signaled Marek, the bellhop. Marek was carrying a heavy leather suitcase for a newly arrived guest. As he passed Jean-Luc Benoit, Marek pretended to stumble, dropping the heavy bag with a loud crash right next to the Swiss banker's chair. Most people would jump. They would look startled. They would exclaim. Benoit didn't flinch. His hand didn't shake. He didn't spill a drop of his coffee. He simply turned his head, slowly, looked at the bag, then at Marek, with eyes that were completely dead. No annoyance, no surprise, just an assessment of threat. Seeing none, he went back to his croissant. Sterling felt a chill crawl up his spine. That kind of impulse control wasn't natural. It was trained. You had to have spent years suppressing the fight-or-flight response to react that way. "We have a candidate," Sterling muttered to himself. But a lack of flinching wasn't proof. It was just an indicator. To confirm, they needed to get inside Benoit's room, and that was impossible. The Hotel Victoria's locks were high-end, and breaking into a guest's room without alerting the hotel security, and by extension, the Polish police, was a high-wire act. However, every hotel has a flaw. In the Victoria, the flaw was the maid service. The maids had master keys, and while most maids were informants for the SB, not all of them were loyal. Sterling initiated Protocol Blue. It was a risky maneuver. They would trigger a false fire alarm on the 4th floor only, a silent alarm that would send maintenance running but wouldn't evacuate the whole hotel. In the confusion, a CIA technical officer, disguised as a hotel plumber, would enter Benoit's room for exactly 90 seconds. The objective: find the tools of the trade. A weapon, a vial, a communication device. Anything that didn't belong to a Swiss banker. The hours ticked by. It was now Thursday evening. The reception for the trade delegation was 24 hours away. The entry into Jean-Luc Benoit's room had yielded nothing. The technical officer reported back to Sterling in a safe zone. a park bench in the Saxon garden, shivering in the biting wind. "Clean," the tech said, blowing into his hands. "Too clean. No personal photos, no papers. His clothes are hung perfectly, but there's nothing incriminating. No camera, no poison, no gun. Just banking prospectuses. Maybe he carries the kit on him?" Sterling suggested. "Maybe, but I found something else," the tech said. "Under the sink in the bathroom, a receipt for a flower shop in Warsaw. He bought red roses yesterday." "Bankers buy flowers," Sterling said, disappointed. "He bought them for a grave," the tech corrected. "The receipt is for a wreath, sent to the Powansky Cemetery, to the grave of a woman who died in 1944. Sterling frowned. Why would a Swiss banker pay respects to a Warsaw uprising victim? "Exactly, so I ran the name on the grave," the tech said. "The woman was the grandmother of a known French intelligence officer. Benoit isn't KGB, he's DGSE, French intelligence." Sterling swore under his breath. They had wasted 6 hours tracking a French spy. The lack of flinching, the tradecraft, it all fit. The French were likely in town watching the same trade delegation, maybe trying to steal the same secrets, but they weren't assassins. Benoit wasn't the architect, he was just another shark in the tank. They were back to square one. And Dr. Glowacki was running out of time. Sterling returned to the hotel, the frustration burning in his chest. He went back to the guest list. He had crossed off the Swiss banker. Who was left? There was an American businessman from Texas, loud and obnoxious. A group of Japanese engineers, a British cultural attaché, and a solitary traveler from Argentina named Hector Luis. Sterling pulled the file on Hector Luis. According to his papers, he was an importer of leather goods. He had checked in 3 days ago. He kept to his room, ordering room service for every meal. He requested that housekeeping not enter his room, claiming he was recovering from a flu. Isolation, Sterling thought. Classic prep. If you are preparing a chemical compound or assembling a device, you don't want maids seeing the components. You keep the "Do Not Disturb" sign up. Sterling decided to focus the surveillance on room 512, Hector Luis. But he needed eyes on the target. He couldn't break into this room. The plumber trick couldn't be used twice in one day without raising suspicion. He needed to see Luis leave the room. Sterling positioned himself in the 5th floor stairwell, cracking the door just enough to see the corridor. It was a waiting game. Hours passed. His legs cramped. The smell of industrial floor wax became nauseating. Finally, at 9 p.m., the door to room 512 opened. A man stepped out. He was slight, balding, wearing thick glasses and an ill-fitting suit. He looked like a librarian, not a killer. He carried a plastic bag. He walked to the trash chute at the end of the hall, dropped the bag, and scurried back into his room. Sterling waited 2 minutes, then sprinted to the trash chute. He used a wire hook he kept in his pocket to fish the bag back up before it fell to the compactor in the basement. He retreated to the stairwell and opened the bag. Inside were empty wrappers for insulin syringes, and apple cores, and a crumpled draft of a letter written in Spanish to his mother. Sterling slumped against the concrete wall. Insulin. The man was diabetic. That explained the room service and the "Do Not Disturb." He was genuinely sick and managing a chronic condition. The isolation wasn't tradecraft. It was just a man trying to rest. Another dead end. Sterling felt a rising panic. The architect was here. He could feel it. But the man was invisible. He wasn't the Swiss banker. He wasn't the Argentine importer. Sterling went back to the lobby. He sat in a deep armchair, closing his eyes, trying to reset his brain. Think like him, he told himself. You need to get close to Glowacki. But you can't be seen. You need a reason to be on the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor was high security because of the trade delegation. Guards were checking IDs at the elevator, and then Sterling realized his mistake. He had been looking at the guests. The architect was a master of blending in. The best way to move freely in a luxury hotel isn't to be a guest. Guests have restrictions. Guests are noticed if they loiter in hallways. Who can go anywhere? Who can knock on any door? Who can carry a tray of food or a bag of laundry without anyone batting an eye? The staff. But the staff were vetted by the SB. It would be incredibly difficult to insert a KGB agent into the hotel staff roster at the last minute. Unless he was an official staff. Sterling stood up and walked to the front desk. He watched the flow of people. He saw a man in a maintenance uniform, gray coveralls, adjusting a thermostat near the entrance. Then he saw another man in a waiter's jacket carrying a tray of drinks. Sterling went to the concierge, a man named Pyotr, who accepted US dollars for information. "Pyotr," Sterling said quietly, sliding a $20 bill across the marble counter under a brochure. "The maintenance crew. Are there any new guys this week? Maybe a specialist for the heating system?" Pyotr palmed the bill smoothly. "No, Mr. Sterling. Same old drunks. Wait. There is the elevator technician. The West Bank of elevators has been acting up. The company sent a specialist from Berlin. He's been working in the shafts for 2 days. An elevator technician," Sterling repeated. It was perfect. An elevator tech has access to the shafts. The shafts connect to every floor. You can stop an elevator between floors. You can access the service hatches. You can be on the roof 1 minute and the basement the next. And you wear a uniform that makes you invisible. "What does he look like?" Sterling asked. "Tall, dark hair, quiet. Works alone. He wears a blue jumpsuit with the logo of the elevator company." "Otis. Where is he now?" "He signed out the master key for the service hatch on the 3rd floor an hour ago." The 3rd floor. Glowacki's floor. Sterling didn't run. Running draws attention. He walked fast and hard toward the stairs. He bypassed the elevators. If the technician controlled the elevators, getting into a metal box was a death trap. Sterling took the stairs 2 at a time, his hand instinctively going to the small .38 caliber pistol he carried in a shoulder holster, a weapon he prayed he wouldn't have to use. A gunshot in the Victoria would cause an international incident that would end his career and possibly land him in a Polish prison. He reached the 3rd floor door. He eased it open. The corridor was empty. The patterned carpet stretched out in silence. Room 304, Glowacki's room, was halfway down the hall. Sterling saw it. Outside, room 306, 2 doors down, a maintenance cart was parked, but the door to 306 was closed. Then he looked up. The service hatch in the ceiling, the access panel for the electrical and ventilation systems, was slightly ajar. The architect wasn't going through the door. He was coming through the ceiling. Sterling moved silently down the corridor, hugging the wall. He was in the blind spot of the concierge desk at the end of the hall, but he knew he was exposed. The service hatch above room 304, Dr. Glowacki's room, was closed. But the crawl space above the drop ceiling connected the rooms. It was a common feature in these hastily built socialist concrete structures. The ventilation ducts were shared. If the architect was in the ceiling, he could drill a tiny hole into Glowacki's room. He could drop a gas canister. He could insert a fiber optic camera. He could wait for Glowacki to sleep and then descend. Sterling stood under the open hatch near room 306. He listened. He heard a faint scraping sound, like fabric dragging over metal. Someone was moving in the crawl space. Sterling had a choice. He could pull the fire alarm, forcing an evacuation, but that would spook the assassin. The architect would slip away in the chaos, disappear into the maintenance shafts, and try again later. Or he would realize the operation was blown and decide to burn the house down, kill Glowacki immediately and violently before escaping. Sterling needed to neutralize the threat quietly. He reached up and pushed the hatch fully open. It was dark up there, a tangle of wires and ducts. He saw a flicker of light, a penlight beam cutting through the dust about 20 feet away, directly over Glowacki's room. Sterling needed a weapon that wasn't a gun. He looked at the maintenance cart. There were tools, a heavy wrench, a canister of pressurized Freon for the AC units. Sterling grabbed the heavy wrench. He climbed onto the cart, balancing precariously, and hoisted himself into the crawl space. It was a claustrophobic nightmare. The air smelled of dry rot and fiberglass. The space was barely 2 feet high. Sterling had to crawl on his elbows and knees, trying to be silent, but the ceiling tiles creaked under his weight. The beam of light ahead snapped off instantly. The architect had heard him. Now they were 2 predators in a dark tunnel. "Maintenance?" Sterling whispered in Polish, trying to play the role of a confused worker. "Hey boss, is that you?" Silence. Then a whirring sound, low and mechanical. Sterling realized too late what it was: a power drill. Suddenly, the darkness ahead erupted in motion. The architect wasn't retreating, he was attacking. He came scrambling through the dust, low and fast like a spider. Sterling swung the wrench blindly in the dark. It clanged against a metal duct with a deafening ring. A hand grabbed Sterling's wrist. The grip was iron-hard. A knee slammed into Sterling's ribs, knocking the wind out of him. They fought in the cramped, dark space above the unsuspecting guests. It was a silent, brutal struggle of elbows, knees, and leverage. Sterling couldn't see his opponent's face, only the outline of the blue jumpsuit. The assassin tried to press something against Sterling's face. A rag. Chloroform? A nerve agent? Sterling jerked his head back, smashing it against a pipe. He bit down on the hand holding the rag. The assassin grunted, a sharp, human sound. Sterling managed to free one leg and kicked out hard. His boot connected with the assassin's chest. The ceiling tile beneath them, cheap, water-damaged plasterboard, gave way with a sickening crack. Both men fell. They crashed through the ceiling of room 305, the room between the cart and the target. They landed on a bed in a shower of plaster dust, wire, and debris. The room was occupied. A terrified elderly couple, British tourists, screamed as two men fell from the sky onto their duvet. The architect rolled off the bed instantly. He was on his feet before Sterling could recover. He didn't look at the tourists. He didn't hesitate. He bolted for the door, unlocked it, and vanished into the corridor. Sterling scrambled up, gasping for air, his suit covered in white dust. "Stay here!" he yelled at the bewildered couple. "CIA! Stay here!" He ran into the hallway. Empty. The elevator doors at the far end were closing. Sterling saw the blue jumpsuit slip inside. He sprinted to the elevator bank. The numbers were counting down. 3, 2, 1. Lobby. Damn it! Sterling slammed his hand against the wall. He keyed his radio, abandoning all pretense of silence. "Harrison, security. Target is in the lobby. Blue jumpsuit. Otis elevator uniform. Seal the exits." But as he shouted, he knew. A pro like the architect wouldn't run out the front door. He would go to the basement, to the laundry chutes, to the garage. Sterling ran for the stairs again, heading down. The hunt had gone kinetic. The lobby of the Hotel Victoria was in chaos. Security guards were shouting, guests were pointing at the ceiling, where dust was filtering down from the third floor, and the station surveillance team was blocking the revolving doors. Sterling burst out of the stairwell into the lobby level. "The basement!" he yelled to Marek, the asset posing as a bellhop. "Did you see a maintenance man?" "No one came through here," Marek shouted back. Sterling realized the assassin's move. He wouldn't go to the lobby. The elevator had a service override. He had taken it to the parking garage, level 1. Sterling grabbed Iwa. "Get the car, block the garage exit ramp, now." He ran down the service stairs to the garage. It was cold, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent tubes. The air smelled of gasoline and damp concrete. Sterling's weapon was drawn now. He moved between the rows of parked Mercedes and Fiats. "Drop it!" he shouted, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. There was no movement. Then he saw the uniform. The blue Otis jumpsuit was crumpled in a pile behind a concrete pillar. Sterling approached it cautiously. It was empty. The architect had shed his skin. Sterling looked around. There were 30 cars in the garage. Any one of them could be a hideout. Or he heard an engine start, a deep rumble. A black Gaz 24 Volga, a car often used by the secret police or high-ranking officials, peeled out of a parking spot at the far end of the garage. Sterling raised his weapon, but he couldn't shoot. The car had diplomatic plates. If he shot a diplomat, the international fallout would be catastrophic. The Volga sped toward the ramp. Ewa hadn't made it there yet. The car smashed through the wooden barrier arm, sending splinters flying, and roared up into the daylight of Warsaw. Sterling lowered his gun. He stood panting in the exhaust fumes. He had failed to catch him, but he had stopped him. The architect had been forced to flee. He hadn't reached Glowacki. Sterling walked over to the discarded jumpsuit. He searched the pockets. He found a small metal case. Inside was a syringe with a needle as fine as a hair, and a small glass ampule containing a clear liquid. Sterling carefully closed the case. He knew what it was. Succinylcholine, a muscle relaxant that paralyzes the diaphragm. The victim suffocates while fully conscious, but it leaves no trace in a standard autopsy. It looks exactly like heart failure. This was the weapon. Sterling picked up his radio. "Target has fled the premises. Secure Glowacki. Double the guard. We move him tonight. The hotel is burned." The immediate threat was over, but the mystery wasn't. Who was driving the Volga? And more importantly, the architect was still in Warsaw. A man like that doesn't leave a job unfinished. He had lost his element of surprise, but he hadn't lost his mission. Sterling went back upstairs to the aquarium. He needed a drink, but as he walked through the lobby, dusting the plaster from his hair, his mind was racing. The architect had been in the ceiling. He had drilled the hole. He was seconds away from dropping the gas or the poison, but something was wrong. The fight in the ceiling. The man Sterling had fought was strong, fast, and desperate, but he had panicked. The architect, the legend, the man who sat calmly while a suitcase dropped next to him. Would he panic? Would he engage in a fistfight with a case officer? Or would he have had a backup plan? Sterling stopped in the middle of the lobby. The blue jumpsuit. It was too easy. The man in the ceiling was a distraction, a cutout, a hired thug given a drill and a uniform to draw attention while the real professional did the work. "Oh no," Sterling whispered. He looked at the elevators. The Otis technician had been the suspect. But what if the technician was just a pawn? Sterling ran to the front desk. "Dr. Glowacki," he barked at the clerk. "Room 304. Call him." The clerk, terrified by Sterling's appearance, dialed the room. Ring, ring, ring. "No answer, sir." Sterling didn't wait for the elevator. He ran up the stairs again, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had been played. The fight, the ceiling, the car chase. It was all theater. It was a magician's trick. "Look at the right hand so you don't see the left." He kicked open the door to the third-floor corridor. He sprinted to room 304. The door was locked. "Glowacki!" Sterling shouted, pounding on the wood. "Open the door!" Silence. Sterling stepped back and kicked the door right next to the lock. The wood splintered. He kicked again, harder. The door swung open. The room was dark. The curtains were drawn. Dr. Glowacki was sitting in the armchair by the window. He looked like he was sleeping. His head was tipped back. A glass of water sat on the table next to him, half empty. Sterling checked for a pulse. There was a faint, thready rhythm. He was alive, but barely. "Medic!" Sterling screamed into his radio. "Room 304. Man down. Suspected poisoning." He looked around the room. The door had been locked from the inside. The windows were sealed. How did he get in? Then Sterling saw it. A room service tray on the floor. A silver dome cover pushed aside. A plate with a half-eaten sandwich. "I told him not to order room service," Sterling hissed. But Glowacki hadn't ordered it. There was a card on the tray. A pristine white card with gold embossing. Compliments of the management. Sterling picked up the card. On the back, handwritten in elegant script, "Checkmate." The architect hadn't been in the ceiling. The architect hadn't been the technician. The architect was someone else entirely. And he had just walked right through the front door.